Wow, wow, wow. Today I'm talking with Scott Gilbert from Aesthetic Flight. He helps med spas grow. If you have a brick and mortar or any business similar to a med spa, stick around for this episode.
Welcome to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. We talk about the entrepreneur mindset.
If you get one shot at this, what kind of shot are you going to take?
If we forget who we are, they're going to forget who you are.
You've got an adversity story that's out of this world.
Everything from that Main Street brick and mortar to that billion-dollar manufacturer.
Welcome back to Clicks and Bricks Podcast. I am welcoming Scott Gilbert from Aesthetic Flight today. Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
I am super excited to be here. Ken, thanks for inviting me to talk with your audience. I'm looking forward to knocking out some business tips and tricks for them all. So yeah, I'm pumped to be here.
Wonderful. I didn't say it today, but normally I'm the guy that says super excited. I'm trying to remove it from my vocabulary, but I'm glad that you added it in because
we're on the same page.
Like I'm always trying to figure out other ways to say I'm super excited because it tends to get a little bland. Scott, before we jump into the question part, I like to just, give you an opportunity to tell us a little about where you're at in business and a little about who you are, what makes you the entrepreneur.
Got it. So where I currently am, I founded Aesthetic Flight in order to try to help med spa owners accelerate the business. And I'm very passionate about it because I've sat on just about every single side of this industry. And my goal is to actually help their clients find the solution. And I want to use the med spa network as the way to get that done. And so going backwards from where I am now, I ran a med spa for 5 years, and then exited that, sold that. And the frameworks I took it to scale are essentially what I want to pass along to the industry, which I think is really misguided and misdirected right now. And the reason that I dove into med spas is historically before that, I was a decade in medical sales. I was in the OR. I kind of had one foot in, the common person and one foot in the OR talking to the surgeons and, right there sitting at the table of the operating room. And as at that time, two things happened. One, I met my now wife, who is, she was going through training at that time, but she's a plastic surgeon. So I'm very much akin to the aesthetics industry, but I also developed my own skin problems. And so this is a pretty common one. I ended up with like pigmentation on my forehead. It made me pretty sheepish. I was in my 30s. I felt like my skin looked like I was like 60. And with my network, which was pretty vast, my medical experience being in that realm, I wasn't able to find the solution, which was odd. I got to fast track the dermatologist. I got to, look up all the stuff. And I was like, I just didn't see the information that, there was a solution for me out there, which is interesting. And then when my wife finished her fellowship and started up her first practice, I helped her open it up, and I was talking to the representatives there. She takes care of skin cancers, and these people have sun damage. She also does breast reconstruction and microsurgery. I was talking to the reps to help. We got to bring some skincare in to support her clientele, her patient population. And I got some samples, and 2 weeks after the samples, and this is the standard medical grade skincare that is not sold in drugstores, but sold in every other med spa. My pigmentation that I've been looking for solutions for 3 years literally fell off and went down the sink. And I was like, okay, this is strange. Why did I not know this existed? Why is not everyone selling this? And that was there's a gap here. These solutions are everywhere. It's just the information that's being presented to the public is not what they are looking for from their point of view. The med spa industry they try to sell these treatments, not the solution, the treatments, but the people don't know what the treatments are. So they don't know what to do. So they don't know how to help themselves. And that was the gap that I saw. And that was what I wanted to try to help people, more people like me that were suffering from these skin ailments. Well, wearing my hat when I didn't want to, just because my skin was so bad. But I didn't understand why, with all of these great products and solutions that are out there, why the public couldn't find them. And so that was what I dove into. So I opened up the brick and mortar. I dove headfirst in. I found out why they were short selling. It's because they're so leveraged with debt in a brick and mortar store. And I slowly started working my way out. And another tidbit about that was we had our grand opening on Thursday, the 12th, and we closed for COVID on Friday, the 13th, the following day. So I was really fully leveraged out, couldn't operate. And this is the result of that. Documenting that journey is exactly what I have. And that's what I'm trying to share right now.
Wonderful. That is a wild ride. I just want to talk about med spas for a minute because I think it's really important business model in our country today that's, I think it's lacking across the board. And I have some knowledge of med spas, and I run a fitness company as well. Are most franchises independently, or are most med spas independently owned or franchises? Or is it a
So
good mix?
I'm up in Canada. They're getting bought out by I would say like these groups are buying them out. Now, in every single state, in every province, in every country has a different medical licensing. So the way that you can do that is going to be different. And I'm not sure what every single state's jurisdiction is. I'm learning them as I go, and I relate with people down there. But the reality is you still need a medical director. Even if you are a buying group, you still have to have the coordination of somebody to have a medical license within that state, being a doctor or a nurse, or however it may be set up. I think what's going to end up happening is if they do not succeed, if it's a doctor or a nurse that opens these up, and they and there's so much leverage up front, and if they can't create the cash flow, what ends up happening is there's just a fire sale. And so the capitalists that are coming in, the venture capitalists, are basically just buying because it's pennies on a dollar. So I think that's the way it's going to be growing. And as the competition goes, I think that's what's happening. So it's a bit of a mix right now, but the independent people are doing it for good reasons. I think everyone wants to help people, but you know what? They just don't understand how good you have to be at day one. So I see it as independent, but probably swinging over to more of an organization.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of different med spas through my career. Being in a hosting company, I get to deal with chiropractors and, diabetic med spas and different kinds of med spas. And I find it really fascinating that, if you go through the normal medical facility, and I don't know the medical world very well, but I've dealt with a lot of these med spas. It's my impression that you get only Western medicine if you go walk into a hospital. But if you go to a med spa, you get kind of a mix of Western with Eastern medicine, kind of more a holistic approach. Is that a decent way to look at a med spa?
Because it's for consumer or it's private across the board, I think that every product is going to be on display at a med spa. Now, the one that I was running was in association with my wife, who is a board certified plastic surgeon. And I came from medical as a background. So I was sticking straight to that. And again, I had a problem. Is there a solution? And there was, and that's what I was trying to just kind of pull out, is these solutions medically documented. That's why it's called medical aesthetics. Are they there? And so it was just how are they being presented to the public? What's the efficiency? How is the business model to actually have those solutions get into the hands of the clients that are looking for them? I think the other side of it, the holistic side, is because you can also come into medical aesthetics without a medical license. And so all of the background that comes in, whatever solutions are available to those people and their expertise, they're going to bring it in as well. If they can offer a solution to somebody, they do it. That's not where I came from, but certainly, in the middle, the med spa is kind of the conjoined of all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating stuff. And that's kind of the thought process behind the Western medicine. But we're here to talk about business, right? Not necessarily medicine. So you said undercutting due to debt. Can you explain that to the audience a little more? What you mean by undercutting because of the massive debt?
Yeah. So this is a big deal. When I got into it, I came from a business background, and I think that sales, your spreadsheets, your standard financials are kind of the way to go in the way you think about business. But in reality, it's actually, what is the cost of acquisition versus what is the lifetime gross profit? That's your business. And until you start looking at it that way, you're going to struggle. And all those financials are just the metrics that are showing you how well you're doing along that game. And so the debt has to do with, if you were to take your lifetime gross profit of a client, maybe they average $1,000 before they leave you, and you were to expand that to $2,000, you would essentially double the business. But that's not the same for every single business. So here's the nuance and the efficiency of that is a new business needs cash flow. So it's the resources that are lacking. So if that $2,000 from that client comes in 2 years later, after they become your first client, they're not gonna survive. Whereas if you are a company that's mature, does not have any debt payments due to their lasers, or maybe they're venture capital and they just got massive financing, they can wait until that money matures and comes in, so that two different game plans are not going to be appropriate two different businesses depending on the stage that they're in. And that's part of the problem is the debt starts on day one, but your revenue and your profitability and your cash flow does not start until your product is good enough and efficient enough, and your skills are good enough to bring people in and keep them longer. So I think those are the two main things is they get in, everyone new, it's pretty common for a new entrepreneur to think about the product and the delivery, but really, you want to think about the demand and the cash flow on day one.
Yeah, there's two things that you need to have a good understanding of, and that's your runway and your cash cliff.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Those are two things that if you're getting into business that you either need to know or have the confidence in yourself that you have the tenacity to work through the cash cliff.
And when people are getting into this, if they're a doctor coming in and maybe they've done injections and the injections has this like low, it's per product. They know that, they can see the entire metrics of the service right there in front of them. But they add this device and the device might be, $250,000, $300,000. And they're going to get sold. If you have this device, you're going to have people lined up out the door. And they don't actually understand what it's like to have the device. And it really won't hit home until the payments come in. And you have to pay that device off and the interest on a lease payment in 5 years. So it's like mine was $7,000 a month. It was more than rent. So that's a lot to get going. And you have to now know how to sell that. And you have to have a process to keeping it going. And you need to have what is the continuation. So these are all the things that kind of hit people in the head and they don't know how to manage it and they don't tread water very long.
Two things that pop into my head are the compounding machines for pharmacies, very expensive. And one that's lower cost is like the cryo machines or those kinds of things, right? You can get into that kind of world pretty affordably, but they'll both tell you they'll have people lined up out the door. And knowing your CPA, your cost per acquisition, it's going to go down this path for a little bit because I know there's a lot of med spas out there, especially the cryo freezes, that I can just waddle my ass down to the street corner and throw a sign on the yard and I'm going to start getting sales, right?
Yeah.
If I've got a good sign out there. But I've also got my Facebook and I've got my in-house content that I'm posting out there. And maybe I've got a guy doing some Facebook ads and I've got some Google pay-per-click. How in the world, first, what is a cost per acquisition? What does that mean? Yeah. And then second, how do I come up with that number when I have all these different ways to acquire?
Yeah. So the cost per acquisition, depending on how detailed you want to get to, is basically everything that is associated until a client pays you money. So that could be all the devices, all the programs you have, your marketing spend, the agency you spend, but it's also all the sales consultations, the human resources, and every failed attempt that you have until somebody finally pays you money. So you can break that up. An easier one to look at, but not as accurate, would be your marketing cost of acquisition, or MCAC is kind of the way it is. And that would just be basically all of the payments that you do for your ads and any associated things to that. So if you want to put your agency in there, that's fine. But maybe you pull out your HR and your CRM and things like that. But those are the two main ones you want to go to. Some people are going to put different costs into those, but that's the two basic breakdowns. I look at both of them, one more granular. So I like my marketing cost of acquisition because it's easy to pull out, but it's obviously not going to be nearly as accurate because there's not all the expenses in there. But essentially, if you want as low as a number as you possibly can get, and as high as an introductory offer that you can sell. And that becomes your cash flow, essentially. It's not your lifetime gross profit. They might buy 5 more times after that. But how much money can you pull in to pay for the next acquisition? And so those are your two numbers you want to kind of balance off.
Yeah, I think any company that has customers already and is close to profitable or profitable, they use that marketing cost per acquisition for sure. Mm-hmm. But when you're just starting your business and you're, say, I've got $10,000 and another $5,000 payroll, $15,000 is my cost to acquire my first customer. But you got economies of scale. So that's how you're going to do the math on your cash cliff, right? How fast do I have to get these customers in the door to get to where I'm break even? And then everything from there is profit. That's the economy of scale, which is a whole lot of fun. I see a lot of entrepreneurs though, and I'm guilty of this myself, is getting to that break even where I'm paying the staff and everything. And then I got this shiny ball syndrome where I go look at something different.
Different.
That's running, that's operational. And I'm going to go play with something different. The trick there, folks, is get yourself a damn good manager to run that business unit for you and let them own it, which I think is probably the most challenging thing I've ever had to do. Do you have any input there?
So I was that business manager because I was non-medical. So I came into the industry kind of like, I'll hire out the injector, the doctor. I will hire out the the estheticians to do the stuff, and I'm going to hire out my marketing, and I'm going to try to focus on business. And I'm going to say that was already a mistake. That was like that. I learned that, in a little while in, you can't manage things unless you actually know how to do them. So there's one thing to administer the services, but I got to say, my outporting my marketing might have been my biggest mistake. And I didn't learn, I was just too afraid to learn meta and all of this stuff. Like, I understood the concepts, but I'd never dealt with the interfaces. So I fully agree. Like, you want to have people that can run it, but you need to know intimately all the problems, how the pieces fit together, how it affects another thing. Because to me, a business is in silos. It's not, lead gen, lead nurture, sales, fulfillment, and client ascension. Like, those are the silos. It's actually the opposite. Turn it 90 degrees. What is the client going to see at the first thing they see? How do they need to interact with them to bring them in the door, to get the booking, to build the trust, to create the sale, that does the fulfillment, answers the questions, that has them come back again? And the fact is that your cost of acquisition depends on how efficient your marketing, your offer, how good you are at talking to these people and building trust so they come in. And before the sale happens, how good are you to answer and crush all of their objections? So it's not like those silos are not, they have to commingle in order to reduce that number. And then even on the back end, your ascension is the referral. So if you get somebody for free back into the front, you just cut your cost of acquisition in half. Yeah. So not having or understanding each one of your silos and how they operate and actually flipping them and going the opposite direction is how I was able to drop. We had our cost of acquisition was $19, or sorry, like our MCAC was less than $19. And our introductory offer started out being free, but the average person was doing $1,300. So we would collect more in 30 days. We were able to be so efficient that we'd pay for the marketing, pay for the fulfillment, and the next 3 people. So essentially removing a budget, because every single marketing dollar spent or acquisition was paid for within 30 days plus times 3. So
Which
that's
is phenomenal.
Yeah. That's
just to give $19 per CPA for a med spa patient is outstanding. I pay, $600 for leads sometimes, right? Just a lead, much less a customer. So, and a 6-month return on your marketing investment in a software as a service company is accepted. Like that's the norm. So, having a 1-month ROI on your marketing campaign is, if you got a med spa, talk to Scott.
That's it. Not being able to do that is the reason we get so stuck in sales and try to push, sell, because we need to get this cash in order to pay for these machines. So that was exclusively focusing on client. That's how we ended up doing that.
And that's what we do business for, is exclusively focusing on the client. And I believe that 100%. We're going to move on to the question and answer section here. This is the perfect question, I think, for this lineup. You talk about selling categories, not brands. Can you walk me through the moment you realized that shift was key to scale?
Yeah. So coming into it, this is the reason that I could not find my solution, is because I was looking up things like pigmentation, my problem. The people that sell the lasers, they try to brand directly to the customer. So they go from, they're selling wholesale the laser or whatever their treatment is, and they're trying to brand it. So it's the Clear and Brilliant or the Halo or the BBL or whatever it may be, the product. And then they go to the business owner and they say, hey, you know what, you sell, lots of people know this, so you're going to sell this machine. And they probably going to outsource their marketing. And the marketing doesn't know that they just tickle their menu, and they're going to do a good job on presenting their menu, which is like this Clear and Brilliant or all these trademarked names. But the people that are receiving it, the clients, they don't know what that is. And if you're going to look at your funnel of they're not aware of a problem, hyper aware, all the way down to like about ready to buy, or actually know what that brand name is, you're talking about 5% of the population. So if you're going to cast a net out for an offer, you're already 95%, you've already filtered. So that's not going to be an efficient way to start. And on top of that, we became successful. Like the efficiencies came from the fact that understanding the problem of the client and associating it to an industry that was mature, that was doing a better job at it. So I actually went and I looked at fitness, which has been around for a lot longer, it's a lot more mature, and they're a lot more savvy. And their offers to give the equivalent of what a med spa is doing right now to what a gym does, okay? A med spa offers treatments. If you walked into a gym, would they sell you bicep curls? Would they sell you the lifestyle treadmill versus the Peloton treadmill? They're both treadmills, but that's exactly what we're doing in a med spa. The fact is the Clear and Brilliant and the Halo, they're both collagen induction treatments. They both are in that same category. And so to best address the client's needs, the signs of aging are going to be your pigmentation, inflammation, your redness, and then all the things related to collagen, wrinkles, and all of that stuff. So in fitness, you've got your weight loss, muscle gain, and your diet. In skin, you've got tone and texture, as in browns, collagen, and your skincare. And it's exactly the same. So you need solutions for a person to get a home run solution need to incorporate all of the problems that they have. And that's not just bicep curls. That's part of their package. It's not their solution. So that's when I got away from the brand and stopped trying to sell the treatment and start trying to sell an entire solution. And usually that is a program of some sort that cycles through. I'll use the example again, like cardio, resistance, and a meal plan. And that's what you need for skin. And when we started doing that, and then shrinking the time frame at which that they're able to get a result, then you're increasing the value, and then you're demonstrating that, building that trust, and that's how you get the referral.
Boy, we could talk about this for hours.
I love it.
I like to think of in the gym space and the spa space, I think it would be beneficial to sell the outcome even instead of the solution. So at the gym, I sell fitness and mindset and confidence. That's what I'm selling. And I think the same thing in the med spa is, date with confidence, go out to dinner with confidence. And that's really what the essence of what the end user wants. And you don't say that by saying, oh, you'll run on this Peloton or you'll have this brand of something. So I think it's brilliant to go down that approach. And we're 100% aligned that I believe, and I say this a lot and I get criticized for it a bunch, is that the business owner needs to own their marketing. I'm finding you outsource to Upwork or Fiverr to get stuff done, or even have, outsource to somebody, but make sure that you get all the assets at the end. Make sure that whatever platform they're using, you can export that data from it, because you're going to spend a lot of money to get that set up, and that's okay.
Yep.
You need to have somebody in your business that knows how to manage that and run it. If it's you or somebody else, it's so important that the tribalness of your business, regardless if it's a franchise or anything, or, cookie cutter from one city to the next, a marketing agency is not going to be able to get that, right? They can push numbers around and stuff, but they're not going to get you to a $19 CPA on. And I would imagine a med spa client, total lifetime revenues, probably $6,000 roughly.
It'll depend on what you're offering, but it can it'll get up there. And again, it's going to be all over the map depending on how many things you can offer and what the price points are. But the idea is that you need to basically just increase that number. And so, and then you want to increase the number and pull as much of it forward as you possibly can. That's the nuance.
Ethically move it forward, right?
Ethically. You're going to do that. So, and again, with weight loss, after this, getting in shape and maintenance. Getting in shape's hard. Okay. Maintenance is easy. If you're, 100 pounds or 300 pounds and you go for a walk, it does something. You're going to get there. I know but if you're really in good shape and you got a big engine, you got, your muscles all there and you got this, going for a walk can be the only maintenance you require to get going, or, to keep things going. So you can pull it forward by also getting the most result up front. And essentially that's,
I'm opposite. I like to swing. I swing by 50 to 60 pounds pretty regularly, but I'm the oddball. I like the challenge. When COVID crushed your first build, what was the most uncomfortable truth you had to face about yourself as a leader?
I think business in general is just admitting I'm not good enough and finding the answer. The faster that you can fail and just admit that you're not good enough is the faster that you will find the problem, ask the question, to find the solution, to get the skill to be the solution. And so COVID was the necessity, was the mother of invention. I had to call and try to refinance all these things that I had signed up for and leveraged. It put stresses on everything. Inversely, whoever was able to navigate it was going to be that much better on the backside. It forced me to go into my marketing. And because I wasn't online. My business model was based upon in the same office space as a plastic surgeon, which had foot traffic. And that foot traffic all went virtual as well. So the entire business model was gone. So I had to literally start from scratch and look in the mirror and saying, I don't know how to do online marketing and I better learn and go start from there.
All right. I love it. And you're absolutely right. Mother of invention is necessity, and COVID for a lot of companies pushed them. It closed one of my companies down, but it rebirthed in an amazing way. So, of your 5 growth engines, which one is most often ignored by the med spa owners, and why do they resist it?
I love this question because it technically the last one, which is the team building, is going to have the highest leverage point, but some people won't even get there. So I'll focus on the ones that are the meat and potatoes that people do. So it's like, acquiring a client efficiently and getting them to show up. So this client, like infinite client, perpetual one is our first engine. And the definition of the engine is you have an input and you're getting a greater output based on what your needs are. So if you are a new med spa, you're like, I don't want a discount. I want to sell correctly. And then you realize you don't even have a client to sell to or talk to. At one point in time, I remember thinking that I didn't want to give away anything for free. And then after my clinic was empty for a week, and then I was like, wow, I wish I just gave everyone free stuff, because at least then I would have a bunch of people walking around out there that had a good experience that I could actually relate to. So it was interesting, of an aspect. The second one is sales. And people think of sales in med spas as the consultation, but it's a sales process. So is how many things can you crush before they show up? And so we have a very detailed, right down to how you walk into the room and how I present a glass of water to them is detailed into it. But the one I think is the most important is the client onboarding. I think people tend to relax a little too much after they get the money. And that's when you're supposed to step on the accelerator. Your business will not succeed until you have referrals coming in. And your business will not be good enough until you have referrals coming in. So your product isn't good enough until somebody else is willing to put their name on the line and recommend your business. And so the client onboarding is what I think I'm the most passionate about, because we took something that I think is kind of a given after somebody gives you money. And that's actually when we really started to accelerate. And so every single question that was answered or asked, we try to create a system of some sort, whether it be a person, a process, or a product, that would answer it before it would ever be asked. And then we do it in multiple different ways. So an example of this would be people normally have the sale, they agree to it to do the treatment. They're given this rap sheet of all the things they're supposed to do ahead of time to make it safe, and they're prepared for it. And they walk out the door. They will probably lose that piece of paper before they reach their car. And then they show up, and lo and behold, they haven't done all the stuff. They don't really know what's going on, and it's over their head. So I took that, and I was like, okay, we created a video about it. On the time frames leading up to it, we sent them a text message, reminders, everything they're supposed to do: stop their retinol, make sure the tans. I sent them a PDF with pictures on it. So if you learn either by text, written, or visual, you got every single reference of it. And it was, and if you build it once, it becomes an automated asset. All of the products. Most people even buy products. They would still come to us with their problems. And they had all the products, but they didn't know how to use them. So we built out the engine that when they were having products, that they were going to get text message reminders, the actual image itself, how much they should use, the reminders in the morning, when to start them, when to stop them, basically hand holding. And so akin to if you were in fitness and you wanted to lose your first 10 pounds and you had a personal trainer, what would they do? All of their expertise and just transfer it over. And what we ended up doing is by the time they finished their onboarding, they now actually knew how to take care of their skin. They got a result in a very short time frame. And in doing so, we became the trusted advisor for them. And so they won't go looking for another solution. And we become their recommendation when their friends in their network require the same solution as that. And so the client onboarding, and essentially that was how we just made our product better. We literally took and made our product better. We stopped offering 100 different things. We offered one thing. And so if somebody wants to know how you can offer just one solution as a med spa, they can look me up on Instagram and send me a message, and I'll send them the entire documentation of the 5 growth engines. But that's it. We created back to front. What does every person want? What do they need to achieve that? And worked backwards and answered every single question. So the client onboarding is the answer to that. That's the long-winded version of it. But essentially, we just made our product so good that people were like, that's where you want to go if you need to have good skin.
I love it. And I agree with you. Staffing is so important.
It's a 10X of your business, but you got to be able to get there.
Doing and and I'm going to call out Gary Vee here
Yeah.
a little bit because, he's famously states that hiring is a guess and firing is a decision. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I took that a little too to heart when I first started to adopt that. I was like, oh, well, if it's just a guess, let's just start bringing people in when we need them and fire them quickly, which is also creates a toxicity in that environment as well. So get good at hiring. It's important, and the right staff members with the right culture is wildly important. Scott, I just want to go through this really quick. So customer acquisition, sales process, client onboarding, we missed one, and staff. What's the fourth?
Yeah. So the other one is the profitability. So essentially the first three are to fill your clinic. So it is to bring people in, get them into the program, create a program so good that they start doing referrals, which doubles your input at the front end. So now you're full. Now you have to keep them longer. So now you got a full clinic. You want to keep them longer, which increases your profitability. So you've got cash flow up until then. Now you're starting to get rewarded. Okay, you've now got major profit on the back end, and then it's the team. And now you've got a model, and everything is built out, SOPs, everything is click to close, tight. And now you can train somebody else to take it over, get your time back, and then go on and move on. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
That's what we're all looking for. As entrepreneurs, I think that's the moment when we have a business that we can step away from, become the CEO of that company, and just check in with the people that are operating it weekly and kind of understand where that's going. And then, that's the dream, I think.
Yeah.
It's been my dream for my whole life. And I have I have a couple of them at the moment. So I absolutely love it. That is phenomenal advice, and comes to the end here. And it seems like it just went by so quickly. We should probably try to figure out another time to do this, Scott.
I'd love to.
I think we could talk about more than just the med spas, the marketing, the business side of it. The whole thing is just exciting as heck. And I don't know that I've seen somebody get a CPA down so low as $19 for something that has such a high customer value. That's a phenomenal achievement. So congratulations on that. That is something more people should be striving for.
Yeah.
It comes to the time, I'm going to ask you one question from the Diary of a CEO conversation card. Stephen has done a phenomenal job and put all of these questions together in several different decks of cards, and it's been a whole lot of fun. This is from Jamie Carragher. Can you describe what winning means to you?
I'm going to relate this down to this is something I'm striving for. I mean, you can break that down, what the winning means in so many different levels. But in winning, I'll go to winning in life, which is if you can spend the most number of days doing the things that you are happiest to do and feel rewarded, I think that's the win. And so for me, my journey is how do I become, the two things I know is my favorite things are giving and teaching. And so the more resources I have, the more I could give, the more knowledge I can acquire, the more I can teach and pass along. I think I'm the happiest. So my journey is about acquiring as much knowledge, creating as much resources so I can pass on. I think that would make me the happiest. And at the end of that day, I would say I'm winning.
Fantastic. One of my hobbies is I'm a writer, and I wrote just the other day that the destination is joy. And in my life, I've been able to see moments of joy, my daughter being born, but then paperwork comes, and my son being born, and paperwork comes, and getting married, and paperwork comes. So fleeting moments of joy, but whenever you can truly work on the things that you like working on every day, and then joy just starts happening for you, and you get to sit in joy for long periods of time. And I think that is a phenomenal feeling for anybody on the planet that gets there in their life. And boy, oh boy, did I chase that for a very, very long time. And I'm so fortunate to have it now that I'm giddy most days. So, and if you're out there in the audience and you have a definition of what winning looks like to you, I think it's more than just holding your hand up in victory at the end of whatever fight, or cashing a big paycheck, or exiting a company. It's something more than that. And when you start looking for those things, your life starts to change in really profound ways. And I wish that for everybody out there, and you too, Scott. Thank you so much for your time today, Scott. I appreciate it. If anybody wanted to work with you directly, how would they find you?
Yeah, I think the best way, I keep it simple. I head to my Instagram. My Instagram is It's Scott Gilbert with a little underscore at the end. So at It's Scott Gilbert. You can add me as a friend, send me a message. Ken Cox, I will ship you over what I documented or the wins for me with the 5 growth engines. I want to share them, get them out into as many hands as possible, hopefully help as many entrepreneurs get to their winning day. And so that's probably the best way to do it.
Awesome, Scott. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Ken.